If you've ever taken a big leap, reinvented yourself, or found yourself asking, what the heck did I just sign up for? This episode is for you.
Hey, so welcome back to the Pursuit of Happy Well podcast. We're excited you're joining us for a behind the scenes today, where we're kind of peeling back the curtains. And we've got a list of questions that we're just going to shoot from the hip and explain kind of what is it like to start something fresh, start something new, the uncertainty, the high hopes, and especially doing it with your spouse and going that rate. So do you want to start with the first question? You want me to start with the first question?
Well, I think it's important. Let's preface this a little bit. You might not be an entrepreneur. You might not have a startup, but you might also know what it's like to start a new chapter, take a big risk, do a big leap, decide to reinvent yourself, outgrow old versions of yourself, start something new. Maybe you're moving, a big new chapter. Really, it's about uncertainty and being willing to start over, build something from scratch. And so we're having a very candid conversation about it. We did very little prep for this episode. Usually we have like outlines and a Google Doc, and we've talked about it before we started.
Hey,
what?
We have a Google Doc.
We do have a Google Doc that I created 15 minutes ago. Or no, I dropped it 15 minutes ago, and we haven't done any prep. So this is like going to be pretty raw, unfiltered.
Yeah. Intentionally.
Yes.
Just because we wanted this one to be a little more raw, a little more authentic, a little more less prep, and to see what happens with it.
Yeah.
And so we have a list of questions, and hopefully these will be questions that are on your mind and will align well, and we'll go from there. Okay, so are you going to start then?
No, you start.
Okay, I'll ask the first question. First question as we start, as we jump in. So yeah, we closed our last business. Mm-hmm. Still fulfilling a little bit on it, but no more sales for that, and we are pivoting into a new venture. And so the new venture essentially is starting from ground zero. Mm-hmm. Right? It's a startup. So what did we think building a startup would be like?
You know what's funny is when I hear the term startup, I think of like tech bros in Silicon Valley being like, what's up? I'm a part of a startup. But really it's, gosh, what did I think? I think I thought, I've done this before. No problem. I think there was like a little bit of delusion with the lift it would take, because the last business I grew with it, but now we're building a complete package before it's presented to market versus like, a personal brand. You just need a PayPal link and, social media and talk to some people, and that's it. You could just be like, hey, you ready? I can help you today. You don't even need a website. Like Dan Martell, I think, still sells from Google Docs or something like, hey, here's our mastermind Google Doc, like minimum viable product. All that to say is when you're selling from a personal brand, you need very little. But when you are building a company that is absent of your face, it's a much bigger lift. So I thought it was going to be, what did I think it was going to be? I'm not really sure. What actually happened is it became a massive, very detailed lift. I think I'm the visionary, I'm the creative. So I'm used to just like getting an idea, throwing it together and running, where this has taken an incredible amount of forethought, attention to detail, timelines. I don't think I've ever thought this meticulously about something, not in a perfectionist way, but like in an operational way before it goes live ever. So that's kind of been expectation versus reality. Wow, this is a much bigger lift than I thought. How would you answer that? What would you say?
Yeah, I think part of that is we're coming from a past business, right? So there's some knowledge that comes in from that, and ways that we want to do things differently, from operations to clarity to future forecasting to, just preparing ahead in advance and thinking more steps down the road. I think the last business kind of just grew so fast that we're just like constantly iterating as needed, as it required. Mm-hmm. Like, whereas this is like our iterations are prior to anything getting launched. So in that sense, it's like preparing, really excited about launching. We're like, a couple weeks away. So, But I think that's it. I think from the startup standpoint, this is going to be not as exciting as a question for me, but I think it's what I thought it would be. A lot of work, a lot of planning, a lot of building, this time, I think last time we talked about this, that our last business kind of felt like we were building the plane as it was in the air.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like this time we are having the chance to build the plane on the ground.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And in that case, I just knew it's like there's a lot more things to put in and to put together from the get-go.
Yeah, it's not, we'll get to that. It's now, we're building it now. And I will say, when we were at a business event and we were meeting a lot of other business owners, they're like, you're a startup, but not, because like you're not starting from zero. You're starting with a lot of prior knowledge of the last business. And I really do think that has helped so much, because we learned so much from the last business of like systems and what kind of questions we see people ask. Like, we actually are very aware of what customer service pipelines are like, and what systems need to be in place, and tech and all those things. So it sounds glamorous. Like, I feel like startup sounds very sexy in the entrepreneurial world, but in reality, it's quite gritty.
It's very gritty.
And it's only just been in the last couple weeks, after months of work, where I feel like, oh my gosh, it's all starting to come together. I'm like seeing this thing. Okay. All right. It's real. Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah. Oh, am I asking you the next one?
Yeah.
Okay. This is a good one. What is the weirdest or most random thing we've thought about since starting this?
What?
Yeah.
The weirdest, most randomest thing that we've thought about.
Thought about.
Oh,
Not
thought.
thought.
Oh,
Thought.
I thought you said thought.
No, thought.
I was like, do you feel like you have something in your head already? Something that we have thought about. I think I have it. We
Okay.
talked about this, actually. We were at dinner last night, and this kind of came up. And so part of, we just said, it's a lot of planning. It's a lot of nitty gritty. It's a lot of getting together, thinking about every angle that you can so you can prepare the launch and so forth, the start of the business. So we've had co-working days, and
Hey, I love my co-working days.
and so there's certain days that she's a creative.
Mhm.
I'm more, ops and systems and getting involved in spreadsheets and all that fun stuff.
Gag.
Tell me how you really feel. And so we have working days, and I think the first working day that we had, I sat down and I had my laptop. I was prepped. I had my coffee. Everyone had their coffee. You had your coffee. Like, we had snacks, all the things.
And it wasn't just us. We also had.
We had our COO with us as well, and we had a whiteboard. It was blank, and so I decided, we should probably fill this with today's agenda. And so I put an agenda. I said, okay, so we're working today. What's the plan? And she looked at me and she was like, we're just going to work. It's like, well, what does that mean? What do you mean we're just going to work? And so anyways, I put some stuff on the whiteboard, and our COO and Kristen, the two of them, good friends, love them both. They're amazing, both very talented and gifted. But sometimes keeping a focal point is like herding cats.
I was like, you're being so delicate right now. What's your real thoughts?
I don't want to sleep on the couch. That's my real thought.
You're just like, you guys are unhinged. It is fun, but we work very differently. Christina and I work very differently than you do. And so
Yes.
Scott tries to, keep things very linear. I go where the wind blows me. I go where the creative wind blows me. I will say though, I have had to learn, it has been a real exercise in like asking myself each day, because it's such a massive lift, and because you're not like one project. For me, it used to be able to get done in a day or two. Now one project could take 6 weeks. So I've had to have the discipline of like chipping away at the same project every day, which is kind of hard for my my, ADHD free spirit. So I've had to be like, all right, what is the most important thing I have to get done today? And that's been a huge thing for me, especially in the startup, that I think has been a gift. So weirdest, most random thing is about the inefficiency of co-working days.
Yeah. Who would have thought?
Who would have thought? Well, one day he came home. He went out and I think he had a meeting or went to the gym or something. And he came back and my mom was also at the house too. And he comes home and he sees like the dining room, because that's where we set up our co-working space. And all of my skincare is on the table. And he's like, what is this? I was like, oh, I wanted to show Christina all the skincare I'm using. And you're like, that's what you were doing during work time? I was like, it was our break. It was a creative break. We needed the break. So I wouldn't even say like that was something we've argued about, but something that I think drives you nuts. Like, you're like, I can't be here. Well, yeah, co-working days are not for you.
No, I told you. I was like, the days that you guys do co-working, I get nothing done.
Yeah.
So I retreat.
Yeah. I also am not, another weird thing is actually, I will say when the company name, which is not revealed yet, that was so hard. And I remember you were trying, like, you're like, we have to make sure we can trademark and all these things. And like, I got one, like in my head, I fell in love with it. It was like in my heart, you're like, don't do it. I was like, don't you burst my bubble. Like
we did fight about that.
Yeah. I was like, and I had like built a whole brand board and you're like, I told you not to get emotionally attached to the name. I was like, yeah. But I'm a visionary.
Back to Canva.
Yep, back to Canva.
Keep coming to this Canva conversation. Treadmills and Canva.
How dare you? Don't come after me with my
Oreos.
Canva.
We talk about Oreos a lot too.
That's what you talk about. All right. So you ask the next question.
Okay, the next question is, what was the first moment that we had this thought like, uh-oh, we're really doing this?
Yeah. I think it was when we were filing for trademark. I think it was actually when we were with lawyers and doing our due diligence, and not just like when we were having to think beyond today, beyond this year, and thinking, what could this company be 5 years from now, 9 years from now? What would we need to file? Knowing those things. And so that to me felt very real. And then just with like when we met one of our consultants and I asked him, I said, hey, if this was because one of the things we were asked in our interview process when we were hiring people to come work for us, someone said, hey, this is a startup. Are you self-funded? And we both kind of looked at each other and we're like, oh, that's a real thing. Like a lot of startups, some people have to go and like they have to get investors, secure funds and those things. And we were able to be like, no, we're actually self-funded. And she's like, oh, so that says like you did pretty good with your last business, thankfully. But knowing that we're self-funded, Scott's thing that he says all the time that is now a running joke grew from Despicable Me. He goes, as for money, in terms of money, we have no money.
We have no money.
So that's just Scott all the time. We do, but we have to be so strategic about how long our runway is to get this company up and going. So yeah, realizing that we were paying for something that wasn't yet out in the world is when it felt very, oh crap.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah. And I think that's true. Whether you're moving into a business, startup, whatever it is, I think it's just really important to be mindful of your spending, period.
Yeah.
Are you investing in things that are aligned with you, that you believe in, you have vision for, you have purpose for, or is it just like miscellaneous crap that's going to be ending up in the corners of your house somewhere, right? And that's not just in terms of material things in your home. This could be anything, or in terms of your spending. And so same thing with a business is it's very easy for things to balloon. They say, well, yeah, we need that, we need that, we need that, but you're never using anything to its full potential.
Yeah.
Like it happens a lot with
tech.
With tech.
Yeah. The tech
especially
stack.
with how tech is iterating so quickly right now, especially with AI and stuff. It's like one product can do these 50 different things, but then this other product does one thing well and another 40 different things. So you're just constantly like adding stuff on. You're like, well, hold on. Do we really need every piece of this, or could we actually leverage the few pieces that we've invested in, right?
Yeah.
And so that's been some of the conversation. I think in terms of this question, I agree. I think trademarking is one. more though, I think is the conversations of, bringing team members on.
Oh yeah, the hiring
The
process.
hiring
That was
process.
big. Yeah.
And that's true, that's true of whether you're starting a business or maybe you're going to a different job and you're starting to interview, and then your head starts dreaming about this. Your heart starts longing for this. I think that's when it starts to become real. And then with that comes all of the doubts, all the thoughts of I'm not good enough, or this isn't going to work, or no one cares. Or if you're moving jobs, like, am I cut out for this? What about my family? What about our friends? If we have to move, how do we do this? Like, those are all the conversations that come in your head through the process of when things start to really get some momentum. And I think that's where it really was becoming real. It's like one thing to dream about something, and then when you really start dreaming and putting things on paper, to me, it becomes real when the doubts start to hit you.
Yeah, I think it when it moved beyond just you and I, because it was like, oh, we're going to put this out. If it doesn't work, we'll be okay. But then when we started hiring, and what was interesting, we brought people in that had never heard of us. So it was like, it was truly, I don't know how a cold hire. Is that even a thing? But like we went into LinkedIn and the marketplace, and the hiring process was very interesting for me because it was not, I don't mean this to sound this way, but in my last business, some of the people that came to work for us had heard of me. So they're like, I want to come work for you.
Yeah, they knew your ethos.
They were following me. And so they're like, I want to be a part of this. Whereas with this, we were bringing in people from many different places we did our hiring process the way we did. And it wasn't like it's interesting. It wasn't my personality that had them say yes. It was the mission of the company, the values. It like everything was such a shift from it being about, come and do what I'm doing to like, okay, this is the mission of the company. Do you align with it?
Yeah.
And it was when we were doing all those Zoom interviews where I'm like, oh crap, this is real. People are like signing up to our thing. Yeah. They believe in this. So that was like equal parts, oh crap. And also like kind of I was filled with awe. I was like, oh, they see value in what we're building. So that was really cool.
A lot of affirmation. Yeah. Absolutely.
I'll ask you the next one. Is it my turn to ask?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I'm glad I'm asking you this. How has building this company changed who you are?
That's a good question. I think it's twofold. One, I would say the last business has changed me significantly. I didn't grow up with the entrepreneur kind of like mindset, the go build your own business mindset. I grew up with very much of the like you're going to clock in 9 to 5, right? Like you're going to find a business that is stable. You're going to put everything on a spreadsheet and you're going to put it in, pros, cons. Every decision is going to be heavily, heavily weighted. And so I think the last business like shaped me a lot and prepared me for this next iteration. Because I think the first question about like, what has this been like having a startup? I think a lot of our last business has prepared me for this season because the last business was our first time of like taking on that risk and uncertainty, and hoping that, what we were planning and preparing and putting out into the world would serve. So on the heels of that, I think this business I think is a little bit one iteration more in the sense of shaping, like now we're building this together.
Yes.
And so in that case, this is going to air in a few weeks from when we're talking, but we just had a business summit that we were just at. And that was the first time they kind of shared a little bit of what's coming next into the public world, if you will, aside from our hiring. And I walked away from that and I said to Kristen, I said, I think with what was shared today, I can finally feel as though that's a message, that's something I can get behind too. Because the last business was not, I wasn't really involved with in the sense of
the vision,
sharing the mission, that kind of thing. And not that it was not needed, it just wasn't aligning with who I was. But I think this business, and this has allowed me to like grow into say, okay, man, I'm really excited about serving people through this channel.
Yes.
And so in that sense, it's grown my vision of like what's possible, what are the expectations, how could we serve, seeing life change. And I would also say the second thing or third, I don't know what number I'm on, but I would also say that the last business was very successful in all those things. And I think what's changed for me in this one is like, I just want to see people's lives changed. And so whether that's huge or small doesn't matter. And so I think that's how it's changed me. The last business, I was like, yeah, let's make it big. Let's keep going. Let's keep growing. And I think this round is like, I just want to see life change.
Yeah. I still think that was still the ethos of who you were in the last business, because when you went to the last live event I hosted with that business,
that's true.
you were really,
Moved.
That was your first time, I think, meeting students from the community in person and hearing their stories. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is changing lives. And I remember you walked away from that event being like, man, who cares what's happening in their business? Look at what's happening in their lives, their marriages, their families. So I think that was already your ethos, but this new company even more so. And I would say for me, what changed so much in this business, like how I've changed who I am, is just one, I'm not holding it all. Me letting that go has been a lesson. And also I'm just so glad, like I'm noticing my stress load. I'm letting you carry more this time around. And I've noticed it just in my mind, just being like, so often I find myself being like, oh yeah, no, Scott's got this too. It doesn't feel mine to hold anymore with you in the background anchoring me. It feels like we're doing this together. And that's been huge for, I don't know, for hard days. Any day I'm like, oh, it's not just me holding this together. It very much feels like it went from me to we, and stepping out of building a personal brand. That has been amazing. But also I do think there is some, I did have to grieve the old Kristen, the one who got the applause and the affirmation and the accolades from that last business. Whereas this business, I'm kind of thankful I've done the untangling of myself from who I am and what I do in the world. Whereas this time,
In
it's
terms
like,
of like enmeshed with,
like over identifying with my
your business.
audience and my business. And like, I do think that's the danger of a personal brand, is like you can very easily, if you're not careful, dehumanize yourself and turn yourself into a commodity. And that is kind of what happened to me. So I feel like in some ways I've been able to reclaim my humanity and build something for others without turning myself into a commodity. It's like, no, it's not me. It's not Scott. It's this business with this mission, this values, and this is what it's meant to do in the world. Yeah. And that feels so refreshing. That's
super good. Yeah. That kind of goes into the next question really well, in the sense of like, what have we had to unlearn? And you said this phrase that I think is like powerful, this idea of like going from me to we.
Yeah.
And I think that, man, oh gosh, there's so much to say there, not just in the sense of business, but even in life. Like, it's very easy to be so focused on just yourself. And you may not think that in the sense of you're being selfish, but in the sense of like, you're not doing community, right? There is no we. It's just like, I got myself, I got my own back. That's all I need to care about, because you've been burned in the past or let down or, whatever the story is there. And so you become very me. Or you've built a personal brand and you feel like you're carrying everything on your own shoulders. And so just think about, I think it was the episode 2 episodes ago, or maybe it's coming out. I can't quite remember, but this idea of like, sometimes I think in business, whether we are entrepreneurs and business owners, or whether we're in management or whatever it is, I think sometimes we think that if it's, that phrase is, if it's meant to be, it's up to me. And that is a very me versus we way of doing business, life, community, family, whatever it might be.
Yeah. If I don't step in, who will? If not, or the other saying like, if not you, then who? If not now, then when? Which I get. It is trying to call people to engage in their story and in their life. But I think we can over-identify with that and over function, which is something we've been talking about. That's a whole nother episode. But just like we leave the healthy version of ourselves to take on too much. And for me, the old survival mechanism was like being strong and hyper independent and not needing anything. And I'm going to solve this and I'm going to handle it. And it wasn't because you didn't create that condition. I just had that expectation on myself. And so one of the things I had to unlearn was like realizing I didn't have to be this super strong, hyper independent person holding the reins so tightly anymore.
Yeah.
And that I could ask for help and partner with you instead of bearing this load of like, I have to keep it all together.
Yeah.
I have to do it all on my own, which I do think there are some people that do get stuck in those dynamics, like where maybe they are at home and there's like how if I don't step in, how does it get done? It doesn't get done. And they stay in that loop and they carry it outside their home, like into their jobs or into their friendships, their family dynamics, and it becomes incredibly exhausting. So unlearning that part of me, being like, hey, it's okay to not be this super independent, and to occasionally ask for help and maybe be a little soft, like, which feels very counterintuitive. And it's not what you see in the entrepreneur space, especially among women. It's like, you can be everything you want to be and rah. And just realizing like, oh, wait, I can still do big things in this world while also staying soft has been really, I feel like this whole season for me.
Good word.
Yeah.
I like that.
Thanks. All right. Next question. Where are we at? Oh, ooh, this is good. When did we feel like imposters and what helped us move through it?
Yeah. I think the imposters piece is like always. And I would say, and it comes in waves. I think the biggest time, I would say most often when I felt that was when we were in rooms of other business owners and just seeing how they do work, how they do life, how they do analytics, how they do financial things like raising funds, all these things. I think that's when you start to go like, you have these conversations and you're like, I've never even thought about that. Do I need to think about that? Is that for our business? Does that mean we don't have a real business? Like, I
That's your brain. I'm like, oh, good for you. That sounds like too much.
That's fair. But I think that's probably one of the biggest areas that I've had that thought is just like when you're in a room of people that are been in business longer or doing it differently, bigger, have a lot of creative, strategic processes and so forth. That's where I think you start. That's where I at least was like, man, how are we in this space?
Yeah. I think for me, I've had it a couple times. One in building this new thing. It was actually something before I even started. It was something I had to talk to my therapist about, a couple other professionals. And I said, this thing I'm stepping into, do I need to go back to school? Do I need to go, like, that was 100% my imposter syndrome coming up. Like, do I need to go get my doctorate? Do I need to go get a master's? Do I need to go do these things? And then that was something we really worked around. I'm like, okay, how do I position this ethically? How do I not disrespect those that have gone to school, done those things? How do we do this well? And I'm really thankful with where that's landed with our company and how that's been built. But I'll turn this kind of to our listener that it might resonate with them because they're like, well, I'm not really building a business, but my imposter syndrome comes elsewhere. So I had a follower reach out to me and she's like, this is where I come from. This is my background. This is kind of what I've been dealing with. And it's on my heart to talk about these things. But I didn't go to school for these things. But this is my everyday life that I live. And this is how I've learned to thrive and function and those things. And she's like, I feel debilitated by imposter syndrome because I'm not a professional and all those things. I said, you know what? I do think there was a movement in the thought leader world for a while. It was like all about how to position yourself as an expert. You have to be an expert. And I think a lot of people get a lot of imposter syndrome around the term expert. I think now people aren't looking for experts. I told her, I said, hey, you said you've been enjoying my recent content. Have I been educating you or have I been sharing my experience? She's like, oh, you've just been sharing your experience. I'm like, okay, so what if it's not about your expertise? What if it's about your experience and you don't elevate yourself as an expert? You just say, hey, this is where I am. This is what I'm learning. And maybe you could take something from it too. That's all it has to be. And she's like, oh, I didn't even, that takes so much pressure off. I was like, yeah, you don't have to go and position yourself and be like, I am the expert of. So wherever you are, it's just asking yourself, like, how is there still value here in a way that, serves others and not making it about my ego and me and those things. So yeah, I think that's great and something we had to work through as well. All right. Are you the next question? I think you are. You're number 7.
So. I really like this one.
Yeah.
Should I ask it?
Yeah, you ask it.
And if you're listening and you keep saying this, but if you're not a business owner, it still applies. And especially this question, especially if you're in a season where you're thinking about a change, a shift. And we did this a number of months ago.
Yeah.
So the question is, what do you want this next company to feel like for ourselves and for others? And so do you want to answer that or do you want me to go?
You seem excited to answer. I'll let you go first.
Right,
I'll let you go first.
So yeah, a number of months ago, we sat down after we knew that we were kind of making a pivot and we weren't ready to.
Are you talking about when we went to Breck?
Yes.
Oh, good. I'm glad you're bringing that up because I was going to bring it up.
Yeah. And we went to, it's funny I'm saying this because I just made fun of the 9 to 5, like making the pros cons list because that's kind of what we did. Mm-hmm. But we weren't iterating. We weren't dreaming about the next business on what it was going to be, what it was going to offer, how it was going to serve, none of those things. What we were doing was reflecting upon the season we were coming out of and how it burned us. Mm-hmm. And not in the sense of, I would say, how we constructed the business in a way that caused us to burn. Right?
Yes.
Like,
yes. Yeah.
Where it drove us to the ground, right? Where we created the hungry machine, if you will, right? Yeah. So, we sat down and we had a conversation. We said, okay, whatever this next thing is, or this next, I think really actually just said, what's the next season? How do we want it to feel?
Yes.
Do we still want to be business owners? Do we want to launch a new business, a new brand? How do we want our family rhythms to look? And so I'll give some more examples, but I think if you're in a season where you're like, man, I work a 9 to 5 or I am a business owner, and I'm tired, I'm ragged, or I want to create something different. Sometimes we can just dream about something different without giving it any kind of thought or intention. Mm-hmm. I think what really matters is taking some time with your spouse, if you're married, or with a best friend or someone who knows you well, somewhere to sit and just like cycle through, how do I want to feel in this next season? How do I want my time to be blocked? How much free time do I want? Do I want to be able to clock in and clock out? Do I want work to go home with me? How do I want my relationship with my kids to be? Am I able to be at their plays that always happen to be the middle of the day? Do I want to be able to coach their teams? Do I want to be home on the weekends? Or do I want to be traveling? These are value questions that align right here, the soul questions, things that fill you. And you may not be able to make that switch right away. You might sit down and you might write these things down, and in a perfect world, this is what you would want. And maybe that switch can't happen in an instant, but maybe there's some things that as you write that down, you start going, man, you know what? I'm actually really tired in my current role. I think I might need to make some changes. But that's only going to happen if we sit down and have some value conversations. Are these things filling me or are they absolutely draining me?
Yeah.
Are they giving me the time and opportunity to shape and grow and lead my family the way I'd like to? And if not, those are the types of things that I would say. So in the sense of, for us, as you have that conversation in terms of how we want this to feel, we really went at it from a family, work, energy perspective. And getting to the values, the heart of what we wanted in the next business. And at the same time, that was what we did before launching the business.
Before even like having our first visionary, like, what are you thinking?
Right.
Meeting. Yeah.
Right. And so then the conversations we're having now as we launch the new business is also some conversations about how we want to do rhythms, but also, what do we want our customers to feel?
Mm-hmm.
What do we want them to experience? What kind of life change do we want to be possible? What do we need to construct in order to do that?
Yeah, and that was actually some of the things that we put even in our in the big, huge company binder that I'm gonna hold in my hands tomorrow. It's very thick and printed. But one of the things that we did was when we were talking about our core values was just like we have our company values and we have our client-facing values. This is how we want our clients to feel. Then we have our internal values, like this is our culture inside the company. And then you and I have our family values. Like values it's everything. It really does become a compass. And I think that's when we do get burned out is because we've left our values and we force ourselves into lanes that no
Sacrifice.
longer, align with who we are. And then it feels like our soul is dying and we're like, what is it? Like, do I need to change my job? Maybe not. You might need to look at your values and be like, what's out of alignment? So I will say for some people, it might be hard to answer, like, what do I want? I know for me, it started with when we sat down and did that kind of vision exercise, the things that was easiest for me to write down is what I did not want. I was like, let me just say, I was like, Scott, get the Sharpie. I'm going to tell you all the things I don't want. I don't want this. I don't want this. We're never having a live event between Christmas and New Year ever again. We're never, like, we're never doing this. We're never doing this. I'm not going to do this. And so sometimes knowing what you want, it helps to start with what you don't want, because that becomes like that at the very least becomes a very firm guardrail. So I will say this, what do we want this company to feel like? We know for us, we want it to feel meaningful, purposeful, very mission driven in the sense of like, is the company doing what it's set out to do? How I want it to feel for others is I want it to feel like coming home. Because that's what the company is built for, is what helped me come home in many ways. I think we might cry. Oh no. But yeah, it's just like, I want it to feel like coming home. Yeah.
What does that feel like? Because sometimes people don't have a home that's all that great to come home to. So explain that a little bit more in the sense of like, when you say you want it to feel like coming home, what does that mean?
Maybe where they can breathe for the first time. They can put down the mask. They can feel like I don't have to try so damn hard here. I can just be my whole self. I can be this messy work in progress and hold compassion for myself. I don't have to be I don't have to be a walking to-do list or fix-it list. I think home is wherever you feel at peace with yourself. And if you are in a home surrounded by people that help you feel peace with yourself, what a rich life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to do the next question?
I thought I asked that one.
Oh, I'll do it. What advice, this is good. What advice do we have for anyone trying to build something new while life keeps lifing? Man, this is like a real behind the scenes, like, woo.
This could be a podcast in and of itself.
Yeah. So we'll keep it short and then maybe we'll
have to expound upon it.
Yeah.
How would you answer that? I think I have some thoughts, but okay, I'll just go. So I think anytime you have a dream on your heart, I don't think that is something to necessarily shy away from. I once had someone say, one thing can happen, especially if you're a big visionary, which Kristen is, or other entrepreneurs or people that, have this drive to create. Sometimes they have so many ideas that nothing ever iterates, like it never gets off the ground. And so one thing I remember someone telling me one time was like, if you have a big idea, if it's something you want to create, is just write it down. Write it down, maybe give it a couple subpoints, and then walk away from it. And if it comes back, meaning it's still on your mind, okay, iterate some more, right? Like write some more things out, expand on that. If it's a business plan, and maybe this isn't just a business plan, maybe this is about a vacation or a shift in your home you want to make or whatever it might be. It's like, okay, if it's still on your mind, that means there's something here in your heart that's aligning, that's lighting up, right? So take some more time to develop that. If it's a business plan, put it on paper. What does that look like? How are you serving? What is the business plan? What are you offering? What are you selling? And the more feet you put to it, the more you have an idea that this is something that's plausible and that you really are excited about. Now, what can happen in that though is life happens, right? Life is always happening. There's never a perfect season.
Ever.
There are seasons that probably are definitely not perfect in the sense of maybe it's not time to start something. Yeah. But I would say you're never going to have a time in your life, at least I don't think so, that the stars are going to align and everything's going to slow down and provide you the perfect amount of space and calm to launch whatever it is, a change in your family, a business, a career change, whatever it might be, right?
Yeah.
And so I think as you take time to write things down, iterate on it, expand on it, if that's still sitting there, then I think you lean into close community, people that are going to be honest with you, not just rah-rah.
Yeah. We need our rah-rahs. We need our people as like, awesome, that's great. But then you need people asking like the strategic questions, being like, tell me more about that. I think that needs to flesh out more. I'm not quite tracking. That's not like, I'll never forget. I sent a mood board to my friend and I was like, hey, you know about the company vision. Is this like branding aligning? She's like, are you hosting a wellness retreat in Montana? And I was like, no. And I was like, okay, back to the board. But this is why we need people like that. But so you kind of talked about like the pre-work, like iterating it, thinking about it, coming back to it. Let's talk about like when you're actually in the build and life is lifing. Like, how do we do that? And so I have an answer for that.
Yeah.
One of my things is like, you have to understand that you're a human being. You are not a robot. You have limited capacity and bandwidth. You have to understand that based on your season, maybe your current health, maybe what's going on in your family. So you have to actually know, what is my current capacity? What are my boundaries? What are my limitations? And we're not going to shame them. We're just going to own them and be like, these are the natural limitations that I have to work within. And so I was actually coaching someone on this, and they were throwing all of their energy into, I like to think of like there's different buckets of our life. So, there's our career, our kids, our marriage, our health, and those things. And let's say there's 6 buckets, and we, at any time of day, it's like we have only, okay, this analogy's already falling apart in my head. Not a problem. Okay. So I'm just going to go with how I was coaching this person. And he said, unless I feel like this area of my life is a 10, I'm not winning. And I said, okay, how much energy are you borrowing from other buckets to make this bucket a 10? So if this bucket is a 10, but you've pulled out of your family bucket and your health bucket, and those are both at a 3, are you winning?
Yeah.
And he was like, I did not see it that way. Because we tend to think, especially high capacity people, we just tend to think it's not a problem. It's not a problem. So here's what I would say is like, look at the law of averages and be like, maybe this is a season where this bucket, I'm thrilled with it being a 6. Like this is, you know what? This bucket is a 6. And this is something we're working on, like with our health and our weight training, all this, like the build is, I'm hesitant to say grind, but it's heavy. The lift is heavy in the beginning. And so for me, I'm like, all right, my health bucket can't be at a 10 right now. So right now it's not going to be a 1 because I've been there before. So it's going to be at a 5. What does a 5 look like while I'm throwing most of my energy at a business? Or for me, like cooking and household stuff, like goodness, I am not cooking meals right now. So what are we doing? It's like, all right, my mom's coming to help a little bit with cooking meals. That bucket is a 4, but I've like, all right, can my mom come and help me? Or are we eating out more? You just have to understand, like in this season, what buckets do I need to be okay with, being at a 5? Knowing that I have to put so much energy into this other bucket of building, and it allows for some grace for yourself and some compassion, and just also tell yourself, of course this is happening. Life is always lifing, and I'm going to build while life is lifing. So that's my just 2 cents on that.
Yeah, and I'd add to that in the sense of in the middle of the build. I guess I was taking it from the beginning in the sense of like, how do you put it into any kind of plan? But in the middle of it, then you also some of the conversation is, okay, what is the MVP? Right.
Yeah.
And how
flesh
can
that out? People might not know MVP.
So MVP, minimum viable product. A lot of businesses do this.
Yeah.
Right. And so how do we get an MVP out? and test it. I think the biggest thing you can do is get things tested. And it doesn't have to be massively public. In fact, I think the best thing to do is to quietly test things.
Mm-hmm.
And so you might have some, I don't know what you're might be dreaming up, but like if it's a service, can you test that on a friend, get some feedback?
Yep.
And you have to be very strategic about that. This is why this is a whole nother podcast. But because if you choose the wrong test agent, you might decide that like this is not viable. But really, the product might be amazing, but the person you tested it with is just not invested.
Yeah.
Right. I think another thing to think about is how can you create space, not just about buckets, but how can you create the time and space intentionally to give yourself time? And so this would be, we talk about this a lot in the sense of how do you, you mentioned Dan Martell at the start of this, this whole book, right? Buy Back Your Time.
Highly recommend.
So good read. But this idea of like, if you're iterating, if you're in the middle of something, you're trying to launch it and life is lifing, how do you create space to give yourself time to move the ball down the road? If you're always trying to fit something into the nooks and crannies, I would tell you that it's not actually a viable option or opportunity that you really care about. We make time for things that we care about, period.
What if I'm going to play devil's advocate. What if somebody only has nooks and crannies? My immediate thought is I would ask, is it still the time to build? Like, if that's all you have, is this still a building season? I would probably argue it's not. Like, this probably isn't a building season. Maybe this is a healing season, an integrating season. It's not every season is a building season. And I think it's important to notice that. Because someone might hear this and be like, but I have to do this and all I have is nooks and crannies, and be like, all right, so then we have to manage our expectations for what can be done in the nooks and crannies. So I would say you might have to downsize what you're going for if you're limited to nooks and crannies.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair. Valid. Okay. But I would say with that is to say, we talk about this idea of like buying back your time, creating opportunity. Can you get a sitter? Can you get someone to mow the yard for you? Are these things that you can invest in order to give yourself time to build your next?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Another thing is to think about like, if you are in a job, maybe you're not trying to start a new venture. Maybe you're trying to change your role at your company. Conversation with the boss to say, hey, I'd like to take on some new things. I want to grow. What can I grow into?
Yeah, that's good.
And so then in that case, you're not having to use you might have to be using some free time to educate yourself, but maybe it's not creating free time or paying someone to give you time to build your own business. Maybe it's an opportunity to grow into something at your current role.
So good. All right, next question. I don't know if we're going out of order with our questions, but I'm going to ask it. Okay. What's one thing you wish or we wish someone had warned us about with a startup?
I thought I answered first last time.
Do you want me to answer?
Yeah.
That it's normal to hold a very big vision and feel very excited about it and also feel deeply terrified at the same time. Like that both will be true for you. That both can be true. That you can like deeply, deeply, deeply believe in your vision while also thinking no one's going to buy it. It's going to be a terrible failure. That both are true at the same time and you are not wrong for them. It is a human experience to hold both. Both can be true.
And I think that's in line with your, this conversation of risk and uncertainty, whether you're starting a business or changing roles. I remember when we first got married, we moved across country to Colorado. We knew no one here, and I started a new role. And I remember as we were driving across, Arizona or whatever, I can't remember which route we took, but I just remember driving across and like, man, what happens if this doesn't work?
Yeah.
What happens if this doesn't work? I mean, I was excited, right? Like, but also like, what happens if this doesn't work?
That's such a normal question to ask. And I feel like I ask myself it once a week. And I'm like, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. But yeah, just that holding space for excitement and doubt to coexist at the same time while you're building. You want to ask the next one?
I want to go to the last one. Can I go to the last one?
Go to the last one.
Okay. How do we handle it when one of us is spiraling and the other is chill?
All right. So if somebody's spiraling, it's me. Here's this time around, I have learned to voice my feelings sooner. Because what I used to do, it was work through my panic, kind of bottle it, shove it down, and just power through. I am now voicing a lot faster, and I'd be curious if you agree with this. I'm freaking out. It feels like too much. I'm also like saying when I'm tired, I'm like, I can't today. I cannot. I'm not doing it today. I did 8 straight hours yesterday. My brain doesn't do it anymore. So when I'm spiraling, I voice it. I feel like you normalize it for me. You hold that space for me. Usually you're the calm. So that's how I would answer it. Like, yeah, I've just learned to voice it, and I'll say like, I need a hug.
Yeah.
How would you say that?
Well, we talked about this a couple episodes ago, this idea of like when we're really, really busy in production, it's like a hole in the bottom of a bucket.
Mm-hmm.
And all of our energy is like the water in that bucket. And the more we produce is the more holes. And we tend to stop filling that bucket with water, things that fill us, whether it's walking, working out, maybe it's a hobby that you have, paint by numbers, whatever it might be. And I think in this round, in this next venture, you've been much quicker to identify I would say the overwhelm or the
like the stressors.
Yeah, the stressors. Overwhelm's not quite the right word, but in the sense of like you've been working really hard, like you need to fill the bucket.
Yes.
And I think you've started that soon. You've identified that sooner, and that's allowed for things to sustain rather than like totally emptying the bucket, burning out, and needing like a week or 3 weeks or a year, right? Like, or just always operating on fumes. We've identified those things sooner so that they can be addressed and we can fill the bucket up.
That's such a good point. I will say one time my mom came in and she saw me painting and she went, uh-oh, because last year in 2024, when I was healing and like deep in my burnout, I was painting by numbers constantly. Like I have so many paintings and diamond art, and I was listening to audiobooks, and that was a big part of my healing. So recently when my mom came in the house, like, I don't know, it was maybe a month ago, she saw me with my paint by numbers and she went, uh-oh, are you okay? Like she thought it was like a sign of me spiraling. But I told her, I was like, actually, it's good that she saw me painting by numbers in a season of being incredibly busy. And I was like, actually, if you're seeing me paint by numbers now, it's a sign I'm taking care of myself.
Yeah.
Like what you're seeing is preventative care instead of like aftercare, so to speak. And so now I am noticing, like, I even think I told you today, I'm like, when we're recording, I think I'm going to do some gem art and listen to my audiobooks.
Yeah. What
about you when you're
I would say that I voice it sooner too.
Yeah.
I think for and maybe this has been a little unsettling for you, but I think in the last business I was calm, cool, and collected. And I felt like I couldn't ever be not calm, cool, and collected. Because you're running on fumes, that it would have sent you even into a deeper spiral.
Yeah.
And I think in this round, in this venture, I think we both have become better at just kind of having that conversation sooner, and allowing the human emotions to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Right? Like to understand, like, yeah, today's a bummer day, right? Or today is a hard day, or today you got a surprise. From my side, I get a surprise email that I need some kind of paperwork to be submitted to the government.
I'm just laughing because I'm downstairs co-working and I just hear this groan coming from upstairs in Scott's office like, come on. But I'll say this. I think it was just a couple days ago. I was like, babe, you're in your head. Get out. Like you feel far.
Yeah. For me, my spiral is I get very in my head.
Very quiet, internalized. I become more frantic. I become like a bigger flurry of activity. I become more short, snappy, reactive. And so that's usually his cue, like, hey, let's like take a minute. Or like,
for a walk.
Let's go for a walk. Let's walk your anxiety out.
Walk the husky.
Walk the husky, if you heard that episode. But with you, what's actually been good for me is watching you this time if you are having like a day, what I've actually been telling myself is like, oh, this is, Kristen, this is evidence that he is carrying the load with you.
I like
And
that.
so
Good
for
reframe.
me, but it's been so helpful for me because then I don't feel the need to like rescue you out of it, fix it. I'm like, oh, this is a day where Scott feels the load. And there are days where I feel the load. So when I see you, so to speak, feeling the load, I'm like, this is evidence that I'm not carrying it alone this time.
That's good.
Right. And so then I'm just, there for you and like, hey, I love you. What do you need? And you're usually like, just give me head scratches and
Perfect.
cuddle.
I think every husband can identify with that.
All right. So maybe you're like we've been saying, like maybe you're not in a startup, maybe you're not, doing a business, but maybe you're in a season where you are growing into something new that feels vulnerable, that feels risky, that feels just uncertain. And like, am I actually doing this thing? Like, what did I actually sign up for? What I can say is you signed up for growth, period. Anytime we say, I'm going to try this new thing, you're signing up for growth. And unfortunately, with growth comes discomfort or, resistance. And there's healthy levels of resistance. And we always learn something about ourselves in that resistance. So hopefully, as you've heard us answer our questions kind of off the hip today, that maybe you learned something. Maybe you were like, okay, it's normal to feel this way. It's normal to do this. Because what we want to do is we want to keep humanizing the process. Keep just being honest about what it means to be human while living life. And what does it look like just for us? Like, how do we hold on to this idea of how do we hold on to the pursuit of happy well while we are building something big? Because when you do build something big, you are inviting stress or opening yourself up to stress. So hopefully this gives you a little behind the scenes of like what it means to do big things, enter the next chapter, but do it happy and well.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the piece with happy well also on that point is having that conversation with yourself. If what you have decided to build or transfer or work into or create in your life isn't aligning, I would say that maybe happy well is hard to find. And so maybe some of that conversation is to say, okay, what do we want to do and pursue in order to build that happy well life? How do we set new metrics? Part of setting new metrics is sitting down and asking, what are the new metrics I want to live by?
So if you're like, actually, when can I sit down and when can I do that? So glad you asked. We're actually hosting a Breakthrough Live Summit here in Colorado Springs. The thing is it's sold out in person, completely sold out, but we're like, we don't want to limit this amazing experience to people that can just be in the room. So we are selling virtual tickets where it's going to be streaming. You could be with us May 16th, 1 to 5 p.m. So it's an intensive immersive experience. We're going to walk you through some workshops, some exercises. There's going to be trained experts and coaches actually in the chat and the community while you're working through the workshop to ensure that nobody's left behind. It's only $19, but we're going to be walking you through a series of exercises that actually is going to create some breakthrough and give you some clarity and vision and support and help you. I know this sounds really cliche. I promise it's not, but this idea of like getting unstuck, it's like what we want to do is propel you forward in a meaningful way that aligns with you. And if you're like, yes, I want that. I'm sick of spinning in circles and landing in the same patterns over and over again, you're going to want to check our show notes. It's only $19 for the virtual tickets. Replays will be available for 72 hours inside the group. But that's it. So friends, get your tickets. We hope to see you there. It's going to be an amazing experience. Otherwise, we will catch you in the next episode.